Masks. Married, not dead. Sports weekend, and I thought to myself, what if there were a husband draft? Because because you think when you follow football like I do, and I know like you do, Brian, Jason, to a lesser degree, you're always thinking about who's the next, right? And draft night is something that we've all thrown a party around in the past. And so I thought, well, what if there were a husband draft? What would be your scout report or your scouting report? For example, like a scouting report, Jason, might be, fast, but doesn't play aggressive. Right? So these kind of attributes, these kind of things, high motor, but not the best natural ability, things like that. So if you were drafted in the top, good hands. Yeah. If you were drafted in the top 10 of the husband draft, Jason, what would be your scouting report?
Jesus. Yeah. I don't know. Let's see.
We need some theme music, the husband draft with a jingle or something.
Bright but volatile. Sure.
Now, is that a Jason draft or is that a husband draft attribute? Bright but volatile.
Oh, I thought you were asking me to what would be the scorecard there on me?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, but as a husband though, what would be your scouting report as a husband?
Well, what's the difference?
Well, maybe bright. Yeah, maybe bright and volatile, because it would be you'd be rated on how well you could be with a woman or
I guess
man or whatever your preference is.
I think it's probably impossible for us to answer this because we would have to know what the women were looking for in a mate.
Maybe so. But I think generally speaking, it's kind of like a football team might be looking, or let's say even more accurately, not looking for a quarterback. But if there's a sure thing at quarterback and they have the pick, they're probably taking that person anyway. Sometimes they'll trade the pick, but a lot of times you just take the best athlete on the board. So let's assume you're the best athlete on the board, the best husband on the board, Jason. And then say, okay, well, what would make you that? Like, what do you do best? And then what do you do worst as a husband, you think? That would show up in a scouting report like that.
Ask me to be self-reflective like this off the hip. What do I do best?
Deflect.
Get me a clown horn for that one. That was good. I really appreciate that.
No, I'm just backing with you.
Brian's would be humor. I don't know. What am I great at? I don't know how to answer that question. I'm terribly affectionate.
Boom, that's one. Terribly affectionate.
I'm loyal.
Does terribly affectionate mean that you're very affectionate, or does it mean you're terrible at affection?
Nah. Who knows?
Okay.
No, it means I'm very affectionate.
You're very affectionate. You're loyal. I like those things.
I'm a great, no. I'm a focused dad. I won't say I'm a great dad. I'm a focused dad. It's important to me. I don't know. There's a lot of others. I don't know what's.
Okay, what's the con side?
What's the con side? Well, so
right, they just got to report to pros and cons. That's what they did.
Those things I was giving you earlier. He's bright, but he's volatile. He's loving, but he's moody and can be negative. Can be severely self-deprecating. And bring a negative charge to the atmosphere.
So where would that...
You know what happens when a negative charge meets a positive charge?
Yep. repulsion. Right? Okay, Brian, what about you?
Okay, let's see. He lacks in size. He makes up with production. So yeah, I'm sorry. Self-deprecating. All the measurables, right? All the measurables. Good hands. Good. What was it? 3-cone. Good 3-cone.
Good 3-cone drill.
That's
good
right.
3-cone drill time.
Yeah. Definitely hard worker, compassionate. Those type of measurables. I mean, joking about all the, but production definitely. I mean, like I get a lot done. I would definitely be a small school player, like a small school that made
Dakota
good.
State.
Yeah, like how Jerry Rice went to a small school, right? So
T.O. Didn't T.O. go to Chattanooga?
We talked about that chip.
Chattanooga,
that chip that they, yeah.
The small Cortland Finnegan, right? Samford. You'd be like a Sanford guy. Samford.
T.O. get knocked out of Dancing with the Stars from the DVR selection there with my wife this evening.
All right, good for you.
You mentioned his name.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Yeah. All right. So what about some cons, Brian? What are the scouts saying about you on the con side?
Over opinionated. Although he is a team player. A good example of this is earlier. My wife was, she likes to, after about the third time that she's told me about her current employer and some shortcomings, I'm like, okay, well, you've complained about the same thing 3 times in a row. So here's my solution, it's like, which they never want. But, there's only so many times a person can hear the same thing over and over when you're like, what's the definition of insanity, right? Just cut it out.
I hear that Einstein didn't really say that either, but it's so baked into the zeitgeist that no one can be told differently.
Wait, what didn't he say?
He didn't say what is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and asking for a different result.
I don't think that was him.
Einstein didn't say that, but he gets attributed to that all the time.
Or anything you want to put weight to, yeah.
Well, do you think he's losing sleep over it?
It's all relative.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't.
Wow. Well played. Yeah, I mean, I'm over opinionated, and sometimes I have, I stand my ground. But I think I make up for it.
Standing your ground is a con. That's interesting.
Yeah, sometimes I should be a little bit more, not necessarily forgiving, but a little bit more willing to give.
Compromise is what you're saying.
Yeah, compromise, sure.
Why do you think that you don't compromise? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I don't compromise because because I guess I'm overcompensating, right? Because I used to compromise all the time, and that's all I would do. Oh, yeah, sure, whatever you say, honey. Yeah, whatever you do, And came to a point where I was like, you know what? Life sucks. So I'm going to make a change. And one of the number one things I'm going to change about myself is, I set goals and I don't compromise. Like I set big goals and I don't compromise from them.
So you pulled a George Costanza, where he went opposite. Yeah. He found out that nothing was working in his life. And so that the opposite of everything he had done up to that point in his life must be where success is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you always give in to your spouse and you always do what that spouse wants to do to keep the peace, if you will, and then you find yourself, say, 6 years into a marriage and you're like, wow, I have no say. I have no balls, and this is going to be how it's going to be. I've already set the ground, and this is how it's going to be for the next 40 years until my death.
much sooner.
Or
if you have to live in that environment. And the funny thing about that, and so all the stuff we're talking about sort of leans on our monthly theme of, do you even really know me? And these concepts of, how well does your spouse know you? How well do you know your spouse? How well do you know yourself? And I think it's very interesting, because what I've found in my own relationship is that I can be feeling unhappy about something that's very macro. So my wife will catch up and catch on to the fact that I'm unhappy about something in the micro, but not in the macro. Sorry, I stumbled over that a little bit. But in the macro, it's harder to tell if somebody's like generally unhappy. So while you're unhappy, your spouse might feel like everything's working out great. Everything's fantastic because everything I asked for, he does. See what I mean? Every time I ask him to compromise, he does it. Every time I want to do something, I'm doing it. I'm in control. I get to do all this stuff. That might make her incredibly happy. While you're over here miserable, and that person can't pick up on it. So it's one of those sort of amazing things and interesting things that happen inside of relationships where we're not reading each other very well. And we're not necessarily in tune with what each other want out of the relationship. And that basically, to me, that means your spouse doesn't necessarily know what your goal is or what makes you tick, what makes you incredibly happy. And we're going to touch on that in a little bit, but I don't want to cheat you guys I don't want to skimp out of my responsibility to my scouting report, which.
Please do.
No, no,
I mean, don't skip, but give it to us. So I got to know.
Well, for me on the pro side, it would be that I am very affectionate. One, I think number two would be that I am enthusiastic, optimistic, no matter how I personally feel. So for example, when I know the whole family is in the kitchen, I will always greet them with incredible enthusiasm, even if I'm feeling kind of sad or stressed or tired. I will change my personality. And we talked about this earlier about me being an introvert, but I have to act extroverted at times to be who I want to be in the world or in my own life, and et cetera. And so that's part of it is, and it maybe it's a negative, maybe it's a con, and I don't realize it, that I'm feigning enthusiasm and optimism. But inside, I'm not that enthusiastic and not that optimistic. Going back to another Seinfeld reference, when Kramer asked Jerry and George, do you really want to have fun, or are you just saying you want to have fun? And Jerry's like, I really want to have fun. And George's like, I'm just saying I want to have some fun. Right?
I miss George.
Right. So maybe I'm a little Costanza in that way. But I think for the most part, if I say I want to have some fun, I really want to have some fun. So I'm going to stick with that, being on the pro side. I also think that I'm passionate and romantic. And I learned that very young. And I would say that one of the foundations of me and my wife's relationship was built on romance. Me taking her to dinners in places, restaurants she'd never been to before. Us being able to go on vacations together, to see the world together, to do little things the right way. Even me introducing her to wine, which she didn't drink before. I met her. When I met her, she was like a vodka, cranberry, just regular drinks kind of girl at a party. And then outside of that, she didn't drink at all. And there's something romantic, right, about a nice white wine or red wine in the right situation. So I try to bring that romance. I try to surprise and have the little surprises around. I don't do it as much as I used to. And I've kind of fallen into that husband trap. But that's kind of who I am in my heart. I'm a poem writer. I'll write her a poem, I'll write her a song, things like that. On the con side, I would probably say I'm a fairly inconsistent person. I lack discipline. I would say that the lacking of discipline goes outside of husbandry, if you will. I think it's probably my biggest shortcoming. And
does that affect you in a woman's sense? I mean, it doesn't seem like a.
Oh yeah.
Okay, all right. Guide me there.
Yeah.
Give me the.
Let me tell you how pernicious not having discipline is. It means that you can't stick to a diet, so you get fat, and then your wife doesn't want to have sex with you. It means that you don't wake up at the same time every morning. So some mornings are great, and then other mornings you're behind and you're running your kids to school late. It means that you don't exercise regularly, so you're more injury prone when you play sports. It means that work is a series of windfalls and droughts, because you do great for 3 months while you're motivated, and then when you lose interest, you're not great anymore. And then you have to find some other motivation. It means that I don't write as much as I should write, even though I have a talent for writing. It means I don't have the discipline to sit down every morning and write what I need to write. Instead, I wait for a muse or some inspiration to come along and push me forward.
You're just inspiring me to see all my flaws right now.
It's that sort of thing. Or the classic thing for me more often is some external deadline happens. There's nothing that has driven me to success more consistently than some external deadline that I'm more afraid of missing than what's on the other side. You see what I mean? So if I'm afraid of the consequence of missing the deadline, then you will see Super Chris come in. And Super Chris is a pretty awesome Chris, and I wish Super Chris would stay more often. So that's my biggest, I think that's my biggest con is you could roll up 100 negatives under that one attribute of lack of discipline. And I know that discipline equals freedom, but it's a battle. It's a battle. Battle every day, really. A struggle I battle, I should say.
Could equal boredom too.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Like when I think about people who are well disciplined, they seem fucking boring to me. I admire and envy some of the things that they do, but they just seem kind of robotic. And it's just this consistent do this, go to sleep, do this, go to sleep, do it. You know what I mean? It just, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I like I said, I envy that, but at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't have a lot of flavor to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're probably happy. I don't know. Maybe they're happier.
It's so funny you mentioned that. No, I don't know if maybe they're happier, actually. I think that it's so funny you mentioned that because, yes, I have an artist's heart. And I'm very disciplined around creation. That's the one area I've never had a problem with discipline. Never. When I'm in my studio working, I'll stay there for 10 hours and just keep crafting. But a lot of times when you're creating, you're not getting paid, but you're having the time of your life. And that's this crazy conflict that man has set up in modern society where creation is almost a hobby and can be tantamount to wasting time when you have kids and a wife to support. And the reason I say that's funny is because I just talked to my wife the other day because we were basking in the glory of a little bit of investment success we just had. And I said, the keys to where I've been able to get so far are so strange. If my job required me to be at my desk at 8:30 a.m. every morning, I would have been fired years ago. Years ago. And I'm not even late like that, but I would have been late enough to be fired. You see what I mean? So the fact that they have a meritocracy at my day job allowed me to thrive because I could do it the way I wanted to do it. And if the job wasn't like that, fellas, I'm telling you, I'd still be Chris from Woodbine. Straight up. That's the only difference, is that I fell ass backwards into a position. I kicked ass when I had to in the interview process. And it's a job that trusts me to perform without me having to be at a place at a certain time at any point. That's all it is. And Jason, you worked with me. You know, it's tough for me to be at a spot at a certain time.
Yeah, can't do it.
Yeah, especially if I'm not inspired. Like it's drudgery. I literally viewed our job at Sprint, and this is no knock on Sprint as a company. They're great. They have unlimited plans. Go seek them out. If it fits, if you have the means and it fits your desire. But for me personally, it was drudgery. And I would wake up in the morning like, what the hell am I doing? And just that thought process would make me late.
No, I'm with you. Same thing for me. I just didn't have any, option. You know what I mean? Like, it was nothing else on the table at the moment. So it was I had kind of like what you're talking about. Like, well, I had to, having to perform. I had it. Mm-hmm. I had to change that a little bit. So, but yeah, you're in that situation, and it's difficult to force yourself to do it unless life itself forces you. And if it's not forcing you at that time, you weren't forced. Mm-hmm. That weight had been taken off of you. Necessity had been shifted to maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bizarro world for me when I have to take work like that. Like, it's important to note that you were the one that got promoted there, and I was the one that would have been fired if I didn't resign first. I don't know if I would have been fired, but I did good on the sales part. But I just keep in mind that when it comes to jobs where you had to be there, you were more reliable than I was. So after all these sort of cons and pros in the scouting report, it all kind of lends itself to this thing I was reading recently. And it's called The Masks of Masculinity. And it's a book. I think actually the book is called The Masks of Masculinity. It's by Lewis Howes. And he's this 6'4" athlete guy who had realized how unhappy he was. And a lot of it had to do with knowing himself better and realizing he was wearing these masks. So I'm going to share some stats with you that I think you'll find interesting, Jason.
I'm ready.
71% of married men say they only turn to their wives when something is wrong, opposed to only 39% of women. So men don't talk to other men about their problems.
They talk to their wives?
71%, yeah. So when something's wrong, they'll talk to their wives more than they'll talk to another man. Whereas women, by majority, so essentially 50 or 61% of women will talk to another woman, not their husband, when they have a problem, when something's wrong.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting?
That is. That's not good.
Well, yeah, but I remember you a couple of months ago where you were kind of telling me you were going through it, but you wouldn't tell me what it was. You said, I'll never tell you what it is. And I can't talk to you about it, but just know I'm going through it. Now, that might be a mask, right? The stoic mask, right? This is the mask of, I would say, our fallen soldier tonight, Mr. Buggs, wears the stoic mask. And he's admitted to as much and is working on, and he said this several times, he's working on bringing that emotion back out or bring it out at all and being more in tune with how people might feel when he says something to them that's very direct or robotic, where he's bringing out that empathy because he's been wearing the stoic mask his entire life because he was told that's what a man is. A man is strong.
Right. He was handed the mask.
Right. A man is strong. A man, keeps to himself. A man does not show pain. These kind of things. This is what the stoic mask is all about, according to this book. Then there's the alpha mask, right? We all know the alpha. He's the guy, the big swinging dick in the room. He walks in. He wants to tell everybody what to do. He's the guy who's going to run the show. The know-it-all. I've been guilty of the know-it-all mask.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ding, 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 ding.
Exactly.
That's two of us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So where we validate our worth by knowing stuff.
Or probably all four of us, by the way.
Yeah. We all wear the know-it-all mask. The material mask. I like to think I don't wear this mask because in my heart, I don't care about money. So I would absolve myself of that. But I've certainly seen men that wear the material mask. I've been at dinners with guys who take their watch off and show it to me. Right? Hey, check out this Omega. Check out this Cartier. Right? I drive a Tesla, but it's not what I talk about. But I've been at dinners and been in social gatherings where all the guy wants to talk about is the car he's about to get or the car he has now. And that's that material mask, or that he's trying to get to $1 million. He's trying to make $1 million. He needs to make this amount of money. Why? Why do you need to make that amount of money? You don't.
So here's a question though. Do you get to opt out of those if you're attractive? Like, do you not consider those things? I mean that. I don't mean it. Like, is it, we have these things because we lack one thing or the other. Like, I don't know. Like, I've never been attached to that, material one. I mean, I want the material stuff. I'd love to be filthy rich, sure, like the next guy. But it's not as important to me. I don't know. Just a question. We don't have to answer it. Just pass that one by.
No, I think it's worth exploring. I'm just trying to understand what you mean by it. What do looks have to do with materialism?
So if you're not attractive, if you sit down at a party and you're attractive, well, then you don't have to say anything about that. You don't have to showcase. I mean, it's showcased naturally, but like, is that where the guy that has to talk about his Tesla or his Ferrari? You know what I mean? Like, is that where the guy has to talk about his Omega or his high school football career? Is that where that comes from? Is it a counterbalance? Like, do you find men who are also rather attractive have those conversations with you?
I find that attractive men tend to wear the alpha and stoic masks. Every once in a while, they'll wear the invincible mask, but I think, that's it. I don't see them wear the material mask. Like, they
have it, they wear it, but not.
Right.
I mean, it's not
like, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I'm an attractive guy. And I
asked you that question on purpose, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I had a Ford Probe that I drove around for a while. Actually, that was the car I was driving when I met my wife. And when you went to 70 miles per hour, it started shaking violently. And you were just sure that the wheels and everything were going to fall off like an episode of the Flintstones. And it didn't, thank goodness. And I had, other cars that didn't require a ton of means, and no one was desiring them whatsoever, and it didn't change anything about me. I didn't have a problem with those cars because I knew I could fall back on my personality and my looks, frankly. For example, whereas I had a friend who was very self-conscious about his size. Like his height. Yeah, and all that stuff. Attractive, but tiny, right? And then personality, not fantastic with not a natural with the opposite sex. So the car he drove was very important. That was the lure. That's what he put that on a hook and said, let me wave this in front of you. And that's what he did. So for me, I would say back then when I was driving those cars, if there was two masks I was wearing, it was the alpha mask and the know-it-all mask of masculinity. Those were the two. I thought it was more important that, and it's funny because inside I don't always feel that way, but it's important to present what people think they're seeing. And it's kind of insane that I'm saying that out loud because I understand how human emotions work. You're seeing a 6'3" handsome guy. I also need to give them everything else they're expecting from that. Does that make sense? Even if I don't have it, it's like a fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, but aren't they always expecting it, regardless?
Right. No, that's culture. And that's why maybe you can put on airs and feign certain things as long as you're not fooling yourself. I think the mask is all about you think this is your personality, but no, you're really covering up for some insecurity somewhere else. Like one of the most interesting masks, one I saw a lot growing up where I grew up, was the mask of aggression, where I'm the guy who can kick your ass. I'm the guy who can fight. And this was oftentimes not a handsome person, but they were big, or they were fat, or they were muscular. Yeah. They're the gym rat.
That a lot.
You did, okay. Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's like a small town white America or urban America, it's the same. It gets a little bit different, but when it gets down to it, you get that kind of lower echelon mentality of, all uber violent male and aggressive survivalist kind of, thing. Yeah.
These are your guys with the military dad or they're headed, like, I wonder if you put on the mask of aggression because people were aggressive with you as a child and you learned that that's the only way to buck back against what they felt was coming, or the world is this aggressive place. Sure. Like, you met people that talk like that just are like, oh, the world's a bad place. They're out to get you. The mysterious they are out to get you, and you have to be ready.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. There's the upbringing or the teaching, or even if you're not taught that, if you're in that environment, I mean, I must ruin my whole life trying to make everybody think I was hard. You know what I mean?
Why were you wearing that mask?
Because that was the environment that I was given. Those were the dominant males that, if I didn't have the sports skills. So how else do you attract the opposite sex in that environment? You had to be tough. You had to be hard. Even if you weren't, you just had to appear that way. But I didn't understand it then, that these guys actually weren't. So, I went about it my own way. You started backfiring.
Do you think that's why you started smoking when you did? You don't smoke now, but was that part of it? Was it just part of the look, the toughness, of the in crowd?
Yeah. I've talked about this a lot with my wife, and we're the same age, so we all have different things. But I was like, she was just mind blown that I ever smoked like I did. And I'm like, look, when I was a kid, when you watch TV or the movies, like, the cool guy always smoked. He always smoked. So, I mean, I don't know if that was really my environment or just society had painted that picture. Everybody cool, almost everybody cool in the movies smoked. I mean, up until fairly recently, I was just watching Fight Club. I hadn't watched it in several years, and I know that's old for some people. It's not that old. The Tyler Durden, the made up alter ego, imagined self smoked.
Yeah.
Because that's what cool guys do or did.
It's a valuable point. I suffer from the same thing. I didn't want to be violent. I didn't want to be a criminal. I wanted to make art. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to do those kind of things. I just like to chill. I wanted to be laid back, but my friend group was such that, there were times where the bigger kids in our group would say, you two are going to fight. And if you don't, I'm going to kick both of your asses. So we were almost like pit bulls or like cockfighting, but with humans. So I remember fighting one of my friends, but out of fear that I was going to have to fight this other guy. And he did the same thing. And we fought each other and we loved each other. It was a weird thing. I remember being very awkward. Like, we're really about to fight each other right now. Like, and I think that we both, without even speaking, just had like a little code of, you get in one good shot, I get in one good shot, and then we say we're done.
Right.
Because we realized we were being played, but we couldn't do anything about
it. Right.
Yeah. And
that makes me so uncomfortable just thinking about it.
Yeah. So we did that. And it was like, I couldn't be the violent guys they were. So the way I fit and survived in this friend group was, I'll come up with a scheme. I was the scheme guy. Here's how we're going to commit this crime, or here's how we're going to push the limits here. Here's how we're going to get the girls to our house, or whatever it might have been. I was the scheme guy because that was a way I could fit in, and without it being trouble, for myself. And it was such a blessing when I actually met Nick at Vanderbilt, because it gave me an out. I was able to pivot and then be around people who had no interest in that whatsoever. Like, they just liked you for you. And it's so weird to not be yourself for 22 years. That's kind of what happened. For 22, 24 years, I was someone else. I was pretending to be someone that my friends would, at the time, would respect and not shun.
I did it for 30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It sounds ridiculous, but and there were breaks in there, like when I moved to LA or whatever, but not really, because there wasn't enough time for me to develop who I was. Mm-hmm. But I think about that with my kids. It's so important. Like, whatever I do, we talk about good schools and good opportunity. I just want them to have the ability to be themselves and to have that respected. You know what I mean? Like, I knew kids in school that were like me naturally, artists and creatives and people who were emotional and connected to the earth. Mm-hmm. But it never, I'm also a flagrant observer.
Yeah.
And I could look at them and go, well, what good is, I couldn't measure the future because I was a kid and I'm an idiot or whatever, but I could look and say, what good is that doing them right now? Mm-hmm. It's not, okay, yeah, they're getting good grades. Who gives a fuck? Mm-hmm. Because I was a kid and I wasn't bright enough to see that either. But I was like, do the girls like them? No. Are they popular? No. Do they get made fun of? Yes. Why would I want to be one of them? Even though naturally I was. Mm-hmm. I was also, I couldn't shut down. I could, I'm also that survivor that says I'm going to try to fit in. So yeah, I did that. I did that shit till I met, you. That was my first real break. When I moved here, I became my own man. I disconnected from all of that and said, I'm going to find my people.
Yeah. It's such an important transition to try to undertake. I look back on myself in those times, and I could not explain to my friend group that I liked the Smashing Pumpkins, right? And that I loved Appetite for Destruction. Like that, it was literally one of my favorite albums of all time. I couldn't explain to my to that friend group then that I liked girls that dyed their hair blue and shaved half their head. It was just like this weird thing where I had an alternative streak in me where I liked people who were made a point of being different. I liked that.
Right.
But I was with a group who wasn't playing that. I remember when I stopped eating meat to lose weight, not because of like any kind of revolution or anything like that. I didn't know shit about veganism or vegetarianism. I just knew I was fat. And the main thing that was making me fat was cheeseburgers. And I remember they rolled through Burger King with me in the back seat and they asked me, hey, Chris, not did I want a Whopper? How many Whoppers did I want? And I was like, oh, no, I'm not eating meat. No Whoppers. And they're like, oh, nigga, you gonna get a Whopper. I was like, no, I'm not. He goes, and there was like for real, like 2 minutes of peer pressure around me not getting this Whopper. Like they weren't about to accept that shit. And like, had it not been a drive-through where there's a lot of pressure on you in general just to perform, like you have to perform in a drive-through and there's a lot of pressure, they probably would have peer pressured me in the parking lot forever or something like that. Like that was the only reason I got out of it. And I was like,
I don't know if I'm relating to any of these masks.
What mask do you think you wear? If you were wearing one, do you think you've ever wore the know-it-all mask perhaps, or which Jason was saying that we all have?
Yeah. I mean, I think we all, I think one of the keys to my success in life and in particularly like business is that and I've been told this has been written on reviews for myself from management, is that I'm knowledgeable, but I'm not a know-it-all. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like it's like if I'm very, one thing about me is I'm very confident. So if I think I know something, I'm very confident, but the minute you prove me wrong, I completely like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. You know, like I can be talked down from my confidence, and I feel like I know it all. You can't talk them down from their stance.
I would agree with you. I would say that of the four of us, you're the one person that's least masky to me. I wish I have to get the book and consume it all to see what the other masks are. I don't have masks 7 through 9, so I'll get back to you on that. But how has men wearing these masks affected you in your life? Have you ever had a negative experience with people who are wearing these masks?
Yeah, I think the majority of men do. Right? I think the majority of men. I feel like there's a facade and there's a persona that they have. Well, I'll say men of a certain age. I think, coming in contact with some of the people our age or younger, they don't seem to really stick to one. They don't really. I mean, I don't think the masculine. I spent the weekend at a Cub Scout event with my son, and. I can't think of one person there that was overly aggressive, like a male, like a adult, because there's mostly males. There were a few females there, but mostly males. And there wasn't like anyone that was overly, aggressive. And they were all, I'm 30, I'm 39 now, and they were all probably early 30s. And maybe, late 20s, early 30s, probably their first child, this and that. No one there is overly aggressive, almost to a detriment to the kids. Like I felt I had to kind of take charge and be like, hey, we're going to go on a hike. That's almost, we were talking about,
So you were the alpha, but you weren't wearing the alpha mask. It was just somebody had to leave.
Well, it's not. So I find myself here lately having to put on the alpha mask a lot. Like, for example, my daughter's soccer team was not doing well. No one wanted to step up. So I stepped up, and now I'm the coach, and now I've got them coming. Now we, so much so that their actual coach hasn't showed up to the last 2 games. And, when they're taking pictures with the team, I'm handing out medals to the girls and stuff, and it's really weird. It's really weird.
So you fell into the trap of being the hero dad.
Not necessarily. Well, okay. So really, what I fell into the trap of being was a dad that didn't want to waste an experience for my daughter. And I'm also having the same problem with the Cub Scouts because now I'm a den leader, which I think I've discussed this. I don't know if we discussed this on one of our prep meetings or one of our other discussions, but I think actually it wasn't on a podcast. I've kind of fallen into the default leader on that, and it's a lot of freaking work.
Yeah, and so there are 4 areas that I've outlined that the hero dad is on one hand rewarding, but on the other hand, a son of a bitch and potentially a trap. Volunteering for coaching, keeping an eye on the kids at an adult party, Cub Scout, Boy Scout parent, and leading events. So when you have to be the leader of an event, to me, it's
the over volunteer.
Yeah, it's like being the designated driver. On one hand, you're helping everybody get home safely. On the other hand, you're kind of a prop.
Well, I think this is not just in dealing with children and parents and stuff like that. So this is society in general. If you've got a person that groups of adults will quickly take advantage of the person that's out for the greater good.
Exactly.
And they'll turn selfish real quick, right? So that happens in business. That happens in every aspect of life. Like somebody, that happens in the difference in kind of ideologies. If we talk about even if we want to get to in the political realm, the sort of the idea of the Democrat or the person that wants to give good to everyone, then the evil business person or the Republican who wants to take from everyone. You know what I mean? Like that whole back and forth. I often feel like I get in life. One of my current flaws is because I have this. We discussed earlier, I have this. Hey, I'm going to be, I'm going to kind of stand my ground. Like one of my scouting report, one of my flaws, I think, if we're going to list flaws, is that I kind of don't budge, and this is kind of what a decision I've made is hey, I'm going to be overly aggressive in making sure my kids have everything they need to have and every experience I didn't. So by doing that, a lot of times I'll take over because I'm like, that's not cutting it.
Right.
And I have to take over. And then I take over, and then I have all this extra shit, and then all this extra stress. And then all this extra responsibility. It's like, fuck, what'd I do that for?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the trap of the hero dad, because on one hand, you want to see things be the best they can be. And a lot of times, and look, maybe this is the invincible mask. I don't know. Maybe it's the alpha mask. Maybe it's not a mask at all. Because I think a mask is sort of a permanent thing that permeates your whole personality. I don't think that's true for you. But it's this idea of, okay, this could be better, and who to make it better than me? So I better step up because I know I can make it good, versus waiting or no one stepping up and it's going to be really sucky. But here's the thing. You got to make it work for you, because you end up being the mark in a parent group. Like Nick, for example, has to be careful that whatever party he goes to next with kids, that he's not going to be watching the kids, because now he set a precedent for, Nick doesn't want to be with the adults and talk about adult things. He enjoys being with the children. That has a terrible connotation all in itself. But anyway, now he's the adult that will can level up with the kids, that can see things from their point of view, which is beautiful, but it keeps him from being a part of the planning and it's just bad. And, it's just bad in general. Same thing with coaching. You can't be the best husband you want to be or the best business person you want to be because you're coaching. You have to decide. It's very tough because I think you have to decide at the moment, is the payoff worth it? Like for the Cub Scout thing, I don't think it's worth it. But for the soccer thing, it probably is. That's my opinion.
I'll say it's a case by case. For my oldest, he got with a good pack or whatever for Cub Scouts, and I just kind of stood back and kind of let it happen. I just, concentrated on spending time with him. It was great. But he has enough of me in him where, he can, Jack can just kind of be, he doesn't need constant encouragement or constant connection. Like he can just kind of be and just kind of operate. But Logan, no, he needs me to be overly involved because he needs that constant reassurance that that I love him, that I don't know, he just needs it. He needs
or
that.
Is it the case of the youngest kid gets the fruit of the older kid's experience kind of thing? Well, I guess he's not the youngest. Your daughter's probably enjoying the fruits of that though, right? Because in my house it's one of these things where they're all old enough to be in this house together and understand sort of who they are. 17, 15, almost 15 and 8. And it's just so blatantly obvious that we've done a better job parenting our youngest than we did the other two. and so those kids will sometimes point that out and feel a little bit like, man, why didn't I get this? Or why didn't, and I'm like, dude, we love you all the same. We just didn't know that shit then. We just didn't know what we didn't know. And now you grow as a parent, and it's just like the bottom line is that Maddie, your youngest, is going to probably have the most opportunity of all your children. Just by default.
No, I would agree with that. I think she already does.
You've already set that up in motion.
I think, she's just from the simple fact that from a money perspective, like she's coming along, poor Jack, the oldest one, like he came along. I was just barely scraping by.
Right. Exactly.
And so, Christmases were lean, and, birthdays were lean, and even Logan, the same thing, because, when he was, some of his birthdays have been shorted. Like this is an actual thing this year. Like we've actually said, hey, we've actually put aside money to make sure he has a good birthday, because he keeps getting his birthday and Jackson's, to be honest, are right after Christmas. So they both get the short end of the stick. But with Madison, we're like, oh yeah, well, let's plan her. So we're going to have her in May so that there's plenty of time for us to build up, money, and like there's more space. And so like even from the day, you're right, because even from her birth date, it was planned and more well thought through than either one of them were.
Right. What would you say, out of curiosity, Jason, is the one thing? Okay, I don't want to even take it there. Here's what I'll say. I'll make it better.
Sounded like a trap when you said it. So yeah, let's readjust.
It might still be.
It's a trap.
Yeah, we just talked about the hero dad trap, it's a tough one.
Have you fallen that, Jay, at all? Do you over volunteer or sign up for things? Let me ask you this: do your kids play sports?
No, so I don't fall into that in a sports way. But you can fall into that in different ways. You can fall into that just simply with your wife.
What do you mean?
And just that you kind of set
he's
up
right.
expectations of, well, he's going to do it. He's going to pull it through, but then you get you kind of get pigeonholed like that too, to where. Oh, I hate to say that, but like the hero dad can almost be marginalized to be
the norm.
Yeah, like this is the norm. This is expected, and when that comes into play, that's who you are. You know what I mean? Like you're not necessarily more than that.
Right, it's like when you're always the designated driver when the adults go out to party.
Yeah. It's exactly.
You become a prop of the night instead of someone they're actually hanging out with.
Yeah. So even though you're like, you just think, oh, well, that's just a prop in that situation. Yeah, but that plays into the rest of your relationship with your wife. You know what I mean? Like that's the weirdest thing about being, and I really think this is only a thing for women. It's their flaw. It's your flaw if you're listening.
This is their scouting report.
Yeah. Dependability is like a paramount importance. And it's also the thing that is going to help you disappear to them. The less dependable you are, the more important it is to continually have them capture you.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's, if you're dependable.
The old Patrice O'Neill, they need to smell a little fish on you so that they know that you still know how to fish.
That's right. If you're totally dependable, it's almost like you're dependent upon them and they know it, even if that's not the case. And it goes from there. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So hero dad in that sense, not in the public sense yet.
Right.
I haven't gotten to that. We're just, talking about sports, for springtime. That's, going to happen, but it's tough for me because I don't give a shit at the same
even
time.
In the way that we talked about it about Brian and Nick, where Brian became the Cub Scout parent because none of the parents would step up, none of the other dads, right. or Nick's always the dad that has to keep an eye, quote unquote, on the kids while the adults go talk. You never want to do that too many times because you set a precedent. Like, oh, you go there, like Jason. Okay, you've set a precedent where you're going to do something that, and then now the other dads are going to go get to talk to their wives and your wife.
Right. Which it's about setting a precedent that says my needs and wants aren't important, which I think oddly for the male, which is different than it is for the female in establishing themselves, because the female has to do that too. But the difference is with a male, establishing those aren't just for him. Those are also for how the female views him. That's what gets tangled. That's what we forget about. Like, so when the guy says, I have to set these parameters around me so I can enjoy what I want to enjoy and I can do, part of what I want to do mixed in with my other responsibilities and taking care of my family. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, that's one thing, right? That's the thing that we say, oh, that needs to exist for the guy. But what we miss there is what exists for the guy in that sense also translates to what needs to exist for the woman to want the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if the guy's not himself and hasn't created that or demanded that circle around him that says, this is for me, even if it's a little selfish, even if that borders on that and he has to back off because he knows, I'm just creating this for a little bullshit here, just a safety circle. And I hate to even say that because I try to live just open and honest and straightforward, but but that circle has power, and it gives control, not, overwhelmingly to one side, but at least a control in the sense of I can dial this one way or the other and make myself relevant.
But I also think the issue and the resolution to the issue is more control over our emotions as parents and maybe even as partners, to your point, Jason. So, for example, in some of Brian's examples earlier, the trap he fell into on the soccer team is the same trap he fell into on Cub Scouts, which is he is emotionally tied to his children's happiness over the value of his own time. Because,
I agree with that.
Because you said, yeah, I do this and now I'm stressed out and now I don't have time. The other dads are like, no, my time's too valuable. I'm not stepping up. And then same thing's happening with you, Jason, where you're like, I'm so emotionally involved. I'm going to just do it. And then you do it, but it's outside of your character and you're stressed.
Yeah, it has a cost. But that cost, and
you're not valuing your own time or your own needs.
Yep. And when you don't do that, you become a different person, and that person can unbeknownst to yourself become an unattractive person.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that in an ugly way. I mean saying like not attracting people, not attracting those that you want to, including your wife, because you're super dad, and that's what you absolutely love. And I do absolutely love it. But I'm also super pissed because I don't have my other outlets working out. Not like I'm not super pissed because I'm doing that. I'm super pissed because it doesn't balance out. I don't know that I'm pissed. Like I go,
I'm going to get you a coffee mug that says, I'm super dad, but I'm super pissed.
Yeah, dude, that's it. I got a birthday coming up. Let's do it.
Copyright.
41.
Trademark it.
Yep.
It's so
like
good.
It's great to be that. I don't want to be anything necessarily more than that. It's just if you're doing it without it already being balanced, it's going to backfire. Mm-hmm. It's going to backfire because you're going to bleed out in some way. Like, hey, somebody help me here. I'm not being appreciated because nobody's assisting, or I'm giving all of this, but there's no external reward. It's all internal. And internal reward is wonderful, but we know that we need some external reward too. Mm-hmm. We need the crowd to recognize the performance here, Even if we're doing it just for our kids, we still, I don't know. It's a human feature. It's selfish, I guess, but still, whatever. You can. That's a negative way to say it, but it's human.
No, but one of the things that Lewis Howes talks about is this idea of being selfish, and there's been other books that talked about it as well. I think what is the name of that book? I'm forgetting the name of it. The importance of selfishness,
the virtue of
self. Yeah, they talk about kind of the same thing, which is, there's a type of selfishness that's absolutely necessary for happiness. So Lewis Howes says men want 3 things. And let me see if you guys agree. Guys want freedom, inner peace, and self-worth.
So what I will say is that I am selfish by saying that I'm going to contribute this additional time to help my kids. Mm-hmm. Because you said I should be selfish, but I should also, make sure that I keep in mind my own self-worth. Well, to me, if I'm not a good father, then
right. That's that emotional side.
Is
right.
my selfish. Yeah. So to me, if I'm going to say I'm being selfish, I am being selfish, and I'm almost.
It's a trap. Yeah.
To go back to my discussion about how I am over. It's good. Well, how did I phrase it earlier? Like I'm very stubborn in my ways.
Uncompromising.
Uncompromising. Thank you. Sorry. who suffers? Who's suffering right now from me doing all these things? Am I suffering? Not really. I mean, I'm complaining.
If anybody is, it's probably you. Yeah, but I mean, no.
Who's suffering is my wife. Because she doesn't have the additional time with me. Now, who's taking?
Oh, okay. So you're going back to what Jason was saying about balance.
Yeah. I'm not balancing. Like by me adding these additional responsibilities, I'm skirting on the responsibility as a husband. Mm-hmm. And I'm putting if I've got the balance, like the two scales, I'm taking the marbles from the husband side and I'm putting them on the children's side, and it's tilting that scale. So I'm being selfish and I'm making those, of course I call my wife and I say, hey, they need this. They need somebody to do this, to be this leader. You okay with this? I mean, how can she possibly say no?
Right. Which is its own trap, right?
Yeah. When you call, or if your wife called you and she said, hey, Lyndon needs this, and I'm going to sacrifice my time or my money or my mind. I'm going to sacrifice my mind share in order to give her this. I mean, and are you just going to be like, nah, you shouldn't do that?
No, it's impossible. And I think the difference is Jason is saying he actually doesn't want to do the things, but feels obligated. Am I reading you right there, Jason?
No. I mean,
or that you would say no to more, but you want to be there for the kids, but you also feel like you're being pigeonholed to what you set up as an expectation.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say it necessarily it's expectation that pigeonholes me, mm-hmm. or you or us or whomever. I'm saying that, like, it's not that I don't want to do these things. Like, when it comes to my kids, I want to do all of them. But I forget that in doing all of them, that I'm not going to do, because I'd rather do for them than I would for me, right? Mm-hmm. That's
sure.
a natural thing, but that pays off kind of, but it doesn't pay off fully, because if I don't get to be who I want to be, which I say to myself, oh, it's the best father in the world, right? And I still think that's true, but if that comes at a cost to, what I want to do and what I establish myself with as a man with my wife before my children were around, like, that's where I think it gets, where you start to put on the cloak of invisibility, because you become this father. You become a father to everyone. Mm-hmm. Like, there's my husband. He's a father.
So of the three things that Lewis Howes talked about, freedom, inner peace, self-worth, which of the three do you think you're lacking right now?
Self-worth.
Gotcha. What about you, Brian?
Which ironically...
Oh, hold that thought. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, hold that thought for a second. Which ironically, if you're missing that one, what were the other two?
Inner peace and freedom.
Yep. Sure. So if you're missing self-worth, you will miss inner peace, and then eventually have no freedom.
I just saw that for the first time. Thank you for that. That's because I think Brian might say freedom because he's doing all these things, but I don't think without freedom you can have inner peace.
That's right.
Yes, I don't think I'm lacking any of them.
Okay.
Like, I know that I've complained about me doing these things, but like they do, like, by, giving this time to my kids, I'm gaining self-worth because I feel like I'm a better father. I feel like I'm doing better than my forefathers, than my father did, right? I feel like I'm doing better than my father did. And, from that, I gain inner peace. So, like, I don't necessarily feel like I'm lacking in any of the three.
So not even freedom.
From a perspective of myself, how I feel about it. So I think that, there is how I see this as a perspective of how I am as a father, as a person, and then I see how I am in a relationship. Now, in a relationship, I'm probably failing on all three of these.
Well, it's not a pass fail thing. It's a how you feel thing. So if you feel like you don't have freedom of movement, then that's not that you failed at freedom. It's that's what you want, and you feel like you're trying to get it. And you got to figure out how.
But you get blinded on what you want. So let me counter what he's saying there, because I said all of those things too. That I have all this. I might not have said I had freedom necessarily. So that can bleed to this, because I felt maybe the rest of my life in a monetary way didn't give me that, but the backside of that is that you can feel like that. And I'm not saying that it would change for you like it did for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like that too. That I wasn't failing at those because this is what I wanted, until it had an adverse effect on my marriage. And then I was like, oh shit, that's not all I want.
Right. You want your wife, you want love, you want attention,
that's where it
you
got
want affection.
Fucked up for me. Because I didn't know that maritally, I honestly
another
didn't
word
know,
we just coined. Awesome. Go ahead.
that I also didn't know that I was suffering in that way. Like I was like, yeah, no, I'm fine. This is what I want. I want to be super dad. I want to help. My whole existence is to make these kids who they should be and give them the best blah, 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 blah. And it's absolutely true, except when it hit me in the kidney and I went, oh, wait, shit, my marriage is suffering. That's of equal importance to me. Like, do you say your wife matters as much as your kids? No, but like, yeah, kind of.
Some people would say yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I by nature, and my wife would forgive me for this, but and I would expect the same for her. If it's between me and them, you got to pick them. Same goes that way. But man, no, I mean, she means that much to me. So when I found out that wasn't, that it had adversely affected that part, that's when it changed. It was like, oh, I answered from a safety point. I was like, oh no, this is the most important part. But I didn't realize, hey, how do you answer that if the other shit starts to crumble?
Right.
What do you mean?
What do you think, Brian?
What I think, to me, what ultimately is the question is, who do you want to be perceived, or who do you want to be remembered as? Do you want to be remembered as a good father, a good husband? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, or do you want to me, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about, like, kind of lately, like legacy and things like this. Like, what can I do to make sure that I'm remembered?
Mm-hmm.
And like, the quickest path for me for that is making sure that, through my children. I don't know, just something I've been thinking about lately. It seems like it kind of touches on this.
Yeah, I think when you hit 35, you really start to, if you have your head on straight, in my opinion, you start really thinking about legacy. What will someone write in your eulogy?
Yeah.
I think that one of the toughest tasks you can do is try to write your own eulogy up to this point, like assuming you die tomorrow. And if you read it and you are really upset with what you read, then that is a incredible motivator.
It is, and I think you're right with legacy, but like all of these things, and legacy is very important. We all share that trait. Part of the reason we do what we do, but when you break down the root of all of that, at the root, you could phrase it another way, and it's, this is the truth of everyone, is how do I want to be loved? Mm-hmm. And I do legacy and my children. Fuck that. My existence for my kids is for them. At first it was legacy for me. Whatever. Fucking 10 generations. Nobody's gonna. I mean, if society, if I make it,
if you're the generation that rights the ship.
Mm-hmm. No,
maybe you don't have that problem because and maybe I'm saying that, you have a good family unit, but for me, we don't, right? So like me and my brother are the first generation of normalcy. Mm-hmm. So
the
that's
torchbearers for me, the future Comers.
We kind of are. Yeah. So for us, it kind of feels that way.
And that is, so like as a, this is where it gets difficulty between.
There's no right answer.
No, there's not. Because
and there's no
when you close your eyes, does anything else matter? When you're finally done, when that last breath, is anything except for what you've experienced matter? It's so hard to judge that, but like I do understand what you're saying, and it is. Like, it's important to know that you're riding the ship. I get that. But what I'm saying about legacy and how it goes on, like, even if in the world, like, you have a name that's revered and remembered for hundreds, thousands of years, it's fantastic. And I hope that we all do. I hope that I do. But for what that means to me is nothing. I say that it means something to me, but I don't get to experience that in any fucking way. Mm-hmm. So all I get to experience is what I get to experience, literally, tangibly, emotionally, during this current state. I don't get any of that. I hope that my kids get that, but that's a speculation. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, in 2 generations, I may be irrelevant no matter what I do. So even if when I leave this world, I had this empire and greatness, that's imperceptible to me. So, like, I have to go back to, with legacy is how am I loved? How am I adored? And that sounds a little bit much, but that's the creature that we are. For every one of us, how are we adored? That is the root of it. I don't care if you say that you don't have any need for that. Yes, you do. I'm not speaking to either of you. I'm just saying that's what we do. That's what
you're describing the poem of Ozymandias, right?
Yeah.
You have this statue.
Exactly.
You had this great nation and country you built, and once you died, it wasn't able to sustain. And now all that's left is a statue without your head on it. Nobody even knows what it's there for.
So I focus on that, on the father thing, and here's all I say. This is a lesson that I've learned lately, is that it's being a great father, being the best father I could be, and leaving that for my children to carry on to their children and carry on to their children in hopes of making a better world. I'm very proud of that. But my lack of focus on me and what I get during this time, beyond my hopes for legacy and tomorrow, I shorted it and I kind of robbed myself. And that wasn't a good idea.
Right, because you can't find that inner peace, the freedom, the self-worth that you want to enjoy the time that you're here with your kids. And to me, it all comes back to this really big question of what desired lifestyle, based on your own personalities, do you believe are irreconcilable with being a great husband and father? And I can tell you that for me, there's this deferred life, or that's the wrong word because I'm never actually going to do it, I don't think. But there's this life in a parallel universe I could have lived where I never had any children. I didn't marry. And I was only creating. I'm not rich. I'm not poor. I don't know what that looks like. But I know that I'm just living every day as an artist.
But you know people like that.
Sure.
One in particular.
Yeah, I know a few people like that. And there are elements.
You can live vicariously.
Yeah. There are elements that I like about it, and there are elements I don't like about it. But what I do love about it is the freedom of movement. You know, the one thing about marriage is if you get married, you need to be accountable to your spouse at all times, and to your children if you have children. And that is unavoidably heavy on any guy with my personality type. And there's nothing I can do about it because it's sort of the life I chose, and it's part of the deal. It's not even complaining. I'm saying this is part of it. You signed up for this. This is, it's like if you go to Chipotle, the chips come with the burrito. So that's part of it. You need to tell. Sometimes I'll put it very.
Chipotle, they're always extra, but that's
okay. Bad example.
Yeah.
Moe's,
and they charge extra for guac.
That's understandable completely. But Moe's, Moe's has chips.
No, actually, they don't. No. What I'm thinking of, there's actually a place called Guac here. The name of the place is Guac. It's basically like a Moe's or a Chipotle clone, but they actually charge you for guac
after they name themselves Guac. That's a
they name themselves Guac and they charge you.
Goddamn avocados aren't that expensive when you buy them in bulk. Stop it, you assholes!
Exactly.
Stop charging me $1.
Yeah, I had Chipotle today, and that's probably why it was on my mind. And they did not charge me extra for guacamole, and I had it on all 3 tacos. It was delicious. But the chips I think are extra, but Moe's, you're right. But I will put it simply. Sometimes I long for the days where I have an idea that strikes me, and I tell you guys I have 100 ideas a day, and I just get up.
You have the freedom to act. I just
get up and act on it. I just walk to my car. Yeah, I don't need to tell anybody I'm leaving. Yeah. I don't need to text anyone. I don't need to tell anyone when I'm coming back. There's no explanation as to why I was gone for 30 minutes or an hour. I don't have anything to tell anybody. I don't have to hope someone believes my story. I don't have to any of this shit that comes with the accountability you owe your wife.
That's when you do your best. That's when you do your best, when you can just drop it.
Yep.
Just like best.
No kid's going to call me to pick them up or,
BC, I don't think I shared it with you. Chris, I shared it with you immediately, and you responded back, "This is the best thing you've ever written." It hit me. I was at work, and I was like, I just stopped. I was like, fuck it. Here's the next hour. I'm not working. I didn't work at all. I literally just sat there with that poem. It was the best thing I had written to date, because I just dropped everything. It was weird. I don't ever do that, but yeah, when you have the ability to do that, yeah.
But that's what I mean. So to me, my answer is the artist lifestyle that I envisioned in my head when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I believe is irreconcilable with being a great husband and father. So I cannot do both. And I tortured myself probably for a decade believing that I could, and in turn tortured my poor wife and children in the process. So what I have to do is destroy the image of that life and figure out what does an artist's life look like when you have a family and children. And there are a lot of examples out there, a lot of examples of how it works. Is there any kind of lifestyle that you dreamt about, Brian, when you were young that you realize now can never be because it's irreconcilable with your current situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's that dream to be Hugh Hefner that we all have.
See, he had a lot of wives, though, and kids.
I know. I'm just kidding about that.
Was it the access to the velvet robes? You couldn't really.
No. To be serious about it, though, which is so unlike me. I've always. This sounds lame as shit, but I've always just wanted to kind of be what I'm doing right now.
No, that's right.
You know, like, I mean, maybe there's dreams of, I'm going to be some, when you're a kid and you're playing football or baseball or soccer and you think, I'm going to become some superstar, athlete. Maybe that, some like kid dream.
What about when you were DJing?
No, I mean, I had a kid at 21, so those dreams were, I didn't start DJing until right around then, so that was kind of gone.
It's interesting that you even started.
That I even started? Yeah. Well, the way that worked out is I had the opportunity because I had it was a business decision because I was throwing parties and throwing raves but
you couldn't throw parties and raves today, right? Like that would be irreconcilable with your lifestyle, wouldn't it?
No, I don't think so.
Interesting.
Like I actually as of 6 years ago, like I was still throwing parties and still throwing stuff like that. I've just it's gotten to be where it's a liability issue.
Yeah, but now you have a 6-year-old.
Well, I had a 6-year-old then.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I was doing it then and being and much more successful as a DJ, actually, going around and playing around out of town. Not saying I was being the best father at the moment, but I was having fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of doing the things that I wanted to do. So I can't say that there's this big, when you grow up poor and you're always kind of like put down and you come from a broken type home, sometimes you don't have dreams. Sometimes you don't dream big.
Right.
And I didn't.
Your dream was stability.
Yeah, dude. I am exceeding. Actually, my dream pivoted when after. Once I had Jack and had my first wife and, we were kind of going along and I was like, man, you know what? I think I'm gonna go to college. I'd never dreamed about going to college. Right. So like, my dreams to me every day, is me exceeding the dreams that I ever had for myself or where I thought I would end up in life.
Right. College my son was the event that triggered my desire to go to college as well. Well, I don't know if your son was the triggering. Okay,
yeah, he was.
So my son, the same thing.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to be a deadbeat dad.
Many positive. Yeah, there's so many positive things that his birth righted. I stopped smoking immediately.
Jason, same thing.
And got in college. Did that, I didn't
really know that last part about you either. So thank you for that. So I've been living in this world where I'm saying to myself, there's a part of Brian that just wanted to be flume and travel around the world and put on massive electronic music shows for like massive crowds.
Who's to say that's still not going to happen?
Nobody's to say, but is the lifestyle irreconcilable with living in Nashville with a wife and 3 kids?
Oh yeah, at this point, could I be in Germany next week at the Love Parade?
That's not even what I'm asking. Not can you? I'm saying is it irreconcilable?
No.
Meaning you actually can't be successful at both. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, yeah. That's what kind of what I was building up to. Is that can I do that? Yeah, I could do that, but then could I could I send out that email that I got to send out tomorrow for the planning to the other den leaders at the Cub Scouts to make sure that, all the, kids bring their nutritious snack?
No,
Probably not.
All right. So Jay, what do you got? Is there any lifestyle that you dreamt of that you realize now is irreconcilable with the life you have now? Meaning it has to be one or the other. You couldn't do both successfully?
I don't think so. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, to what I say that
because you moved out to LA at a young age, to give acting a shot, right?
I say that because the dream keeps evolving. You know what I mean? It keeps adapting. I don't know if it's evolving; it's adapting.
Okay.
Which I guess kind of in and of itself is evolution, but. Yeah, like the dream when I was 22, to think, hey, I'm gonna take Brad Pitt's crown. Yeah, that one's irreconcilable. Can't do it now. Wouldn't want to do it now. Kind of, but yeah, I mean. Yeah. It changes. Yeah, it changes on you because you realize, like, at one point, the art was the most important, but then I had the kids. No. Let me back up. To be fair, then I had somebody who loved me for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it meant less. And then I had the kids. Well, and then it meant less. It was still there. Like, it's my core. Like you. It's my core, so I couldn't get rid of it.
Right, you had something else to lean on, though.
Right. It was still like, oh, but this is what I want. This is what I want. I can't be happy until I get this. But you can in a way where you push it back. It's tertiary all of a sudden, and you're refocused because I think you realize at the same time, like, this is all I want, but if I die with her love and theirs, okay.
Right, that's okay
I still win. Because it's what that's. You can't ask, but it's there. It's there. It still pulls.
Yeah, and
I have my own undertow.
The interesting thing about acting, though, so I am around and have the good fortune of being around a lot of talented actors, and many of them are married or in committed relationships. Many have children. So on me, Nick's latest film, Other Versions of You, the two leads are both married or were both married at the time of shooting and both have children. And what I found is that I think that those relationships are going to work out. Well, okay, so one of them is already divorced. And I say already, and there are a lot of factors to it. But
wow. But
he found that being married was irreconcilable with his life's dream and goal. Just the travel to do commercials and other kind of work, along with some personal things that I won't mention, but that comes into play. And I think that the other relationship is very strong now, but should she blow up? So the relationship works. It's reconcilable being an actor until you become super successful at it. And sometimes that happens in a flash after you've been chipping away at your career for 10 years, right? Suddenly you're Jim Carrey, who had a wife and a child, and then he became Jim fucking Carrey. And it was just no longer his normal life that he had back in wherever he was living was no longer reconcilable with this new Hollywood life that required him to be on the road all the time, at events all the time. And
hearing bad impersonations of Fire Marshal Bill
all the time, right?
all the time.
I'm blown away. I'm blown away that Dave Chappelle's been able to stay married. I think that's incredible. Yeah. But I think the reason he's been able to do it is, one, he might be the GOAT, right? He might go down as the greatest of all time. So when you have that kind of talent, you get to call your own shots, right? He walked away from 50 million and he still was able to come back and be successful. That's rare. So he has rare talent. And then the second thing is, he never left Ohio. I think had he moved somewhere else, he might already be divorced. It's difficult. Or if he'd have put that career first and saying, we're moving out here, or you guys stay in Ohio and I'm going to live in LA, or I'm going to live in New York.
Right. It's over. Yeah.
Right. So,
well, I mean,
his talent was such that he didn't have to.
He gets to call his own shot.
People are going to call his own shots.
Yeah. But maybe, and you know what? I think that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not sure that we're not all trying to do that. Is maybe the difference there is he said it wasn't that his talent was at that level. It's just that he said it was. I think that might have great value.
Well, I think more than that, because I think the talent is definitely there, but I think more than that.
I'm not discounting his talent, but
no, I know, but I think
he obviously believed that it was.
I think more than that, he simply said, "I'm in it for the comedy. Like right. I'm doing this for the craft. A lot of people want to get famous and rich so they can be famous and rich." Right.
Well, and that's like when you said
like
that
they do acting, it for the sex, they do it for the parties, they do it for the exposure, they do it for the way they want to be loved, like you said.
Yeah. I'll say this about it. Anyone that's that successful in life. I mean, they put in the work. I mean, I listen to a lot of other podcasts, and whenever like comedians talk about Dave Chappelle, they're just in awe. Number one, because of his work ethic, because of his style, because of his delivery, but the way he crafts his sets and the way he crafts his craft, it's kind of
redundant, but we're with you still.
but it plays.
We get it.
Like they say it's unlike anyone else. Like the way he do it, like you could just sit back in a room and just watch him. And sit in a room where because he'll get up there and he'll just night after night he'll get up and you'll hear his set. It'll never be the same until it's the same, right? Like he'll just all of a sudden it'll snap in and like you'll have all these random questions and it'll seem like it's so improv, but it never is.
Yeah, he's so conversational. It just sounds like you're sitting down for story time.
He gets better every time I hear him. I'll pay for him and Louis C.K. any day of the week.
Any day of the week. And I'm a big Seinfeld stand-up guy. I think that's kind of maybe trite for me to say at this point, but I think he's the example of someone who loves the craft, was in it for the craft,
sure,
and didn't want anything to interrupt with it. So he didn't want anything to interrupt it. So he actually deferred children and marriage to a really long time in the future to make sure he could really be in the now. I think that is admirable. I can't speak. What am I trying to say? Yeah, exactly. I think it's great. And now he's already in a place where that lifestyle is now reconcilable with having a wife and kids. So there are examples out there and to follow. And my feeling on this big question is, can you destroy the image you had before, or the person you were probably emulating when you were a teenager, or trying to emulate when you were a teenager in your early 20s, and reformulate a mature image of your dreams that is actually reconcilable with your relationship?
Only if you can't, if you believe that previous image that you based on somebody else was you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what took me a long time.
That's the ultimate mask.
Right. That's what helped me be comfortable being 40 and not having what I wanted or whatever. Maybe, justification or making oneself feel better, but realizing that, I saw something I wanted and I stapled it to this person in this vein, in this career, like the actors that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I couldn't be who I wanted to be and have this marriage. I mean, the real question there is that who you want to be, or is that who you think you want to be, and it's actually just somebody else?
Right. It's a very good point.
Know, like I can be. That's what I need to be. I need to be an artist. I need to be a lead actor. Oh, I needed to be a lead singer. I needed, because I needed the praise and the worship and the center. And it was like, eventually I was like, no. I just need to know that I'm free and I create art. That's it. That's all there is. Mm-hmm. There's nothing more.
And I think you get different versions of yourself. There's the version of yourself that you don't, right, that you think
he's playing.
plug, that you think is not going to make it, because we all have that self-doubt. And so you marry somebody, maybe you settle, whatever it may be, and then you become successful. That's a version of yourself you used to dream about, but now you're that person. And so now you realize, I actually don't even like my wife, right? I don't even, I liked her when I was nobody, because that's what I thought I could do. And I think some actors and celebrities fall into that. And that's why you see their immediate exodus from their original state. I think Kevin Hart's an example of that, for example, as well. So here's my exodus from the life of me kicking rocks, and now I'm a rock star. And so now I need a rock star wife and a rock star life that fits what I'm doing today. But
unless you just misassess what an actual rock star wife is,
right? Or you misassess what's important. So, and I think that's what we've been talking about all night. So, a lot to ponder. It's been a fantastic conversation. It's a good place to stop, gentlemen. I thank you for having it, Nick. We want you to feel better and come be with us again.
Yeah,
next
get
week.
Get a hold of it, man.
Yeah, get a hold of the funk. For sure. All right.
The whole funk and nothing but the funk.
So help you God. You've been listening to the Married Not Dead podcast. To find show notes, read excellent blog posts, and find links to all of the products or services suggested during the show, please visit our blog at marriednotdead.org. And if you haven't already, you can join our podcast listening group on the Apple Podcast app. You can also find us on Stitcher or SoundCloud or the podcast app of your choice. After you subscribe, please do not forget to rate and review. Very important. You can also find us all over the social medias. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at _MarriedNotDead, and on Facebook by searching for the Married Not Dead podcast page. Please leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about the show. We'll be sure to get back to you. So until next time, on behalf of the sickly Nicholas Buggs, Brian Comer, and Jason McConnell, I'm Chris Barkley. See you next week. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/MND podcast. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from, including one of my personal favorites, How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia by Mohsin Hamid. Do not judge this book by its title. The ending had me crying in the middle of a 4-hour flight to Los Angeles. It's made even better by Mohsin's narration, and you can download How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia or any other audiobook of your choice today. Again, for listeners of the Married Not Dead podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So, to download your free audiobook, go to audibletrial.com/MND podcast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/MND podcast to get your free audiobook today. You will not regret it.